Hello friends, Iron Man, Captain Marvel, Aquaman, what do they all have in common?
They're all comic book heroes.
Yeah, right. Good. They're also heroes that the general public outside of die-hard comics fans didn't care much about until they made it big on the big screen. With Shazam hitting theaters this weekend, yet another B-list hero is poised for greatness. Yeah, I called them B-list, fight me. Meanwhile, June's Dark Phoenix, literally starring some of the most popular comic book characters of all time, is having trouble generating enthusiasm. Why? This week on Heat Vision Breakdown, we look at why the era of the A-list superhero may be over and ask, will it ever return? Let's travel back to the 2000s, an innocent time when X-Men, Batman, and Spider-Man ruled the big screen and Robert Downey Jr. had to slum it in television. If you were to say to a random passerby in 2005, hey, how about that Kevin Feige in Marvel Studios? They'd look at you like you were an idiot. The Marvel of the 2000s was faced with a dilemma. What if your company had foolishly licensed away all of your best characters, so you were forced to make movies starring a Shakespeare impersonator with a hammer fetish or a Boy Scout who wears an American flag as a costume? Could you even imagine? Well, that's what Kevin Feige had to work with, and over the course of a decade and more than 20 films, he managed to turn the Avengers into one of the most powerful brands in Hollywood. The movies, culminating with Avengers Endgame this year, felt fresh, partially because Feige himself is a comic book geek who understands what made the universe created by Stan Lee, Jack Kirby, and Steve Ditko so fun for fans. Marvel also took chances, both with untested directors and strange concepts, like talking raccoons or giving us a Hulk nude scene.
That's in my brain now.
As Marvel's star rose in the 2010s, other studios faltered and their more well-known superheroes grew stale. The Amazing Spider-Man felt like too much of a retread of Sam Raimi's films. X-Men Apocalypse had little of the drama of the early 2000s X-Men movies and very little of the heart. It also made Oscar Isaac's titular villain look like Ivan Ooze from the Power Rangers movie. That's not good. Even Justice League, starring three of the most famous superheroes in the world, felt like a failed attempt to emulate Marvel Studios' magic. After watching Marvel score hit after hit with less than marquee superheroes such as the Guardians of the Galaxy or Ant-Man, other studios began turning to their lesser-loved characters for salvation. And it worked. Sony made a killing with Venom, Warner Brothers leaned heavily into its goofier side and made a splash with Aquaman, and Fox turned Deadpool, a movie which hid Ryan Reynolds' beautiful face beneath 16 pounds of melting wax, into the crown jewel of its X-Men universe. Meanwhile, Sony is also currently making a film about Morbius the Living Vampire with Jared Leto, a character that sounds like something my mom would make up to mock what I cover for a living. I'm sorry, not a podiatrist, Mom! Strangely enough, as Marvel Studios prepares to say goodbye to some of its key stars over the past decade like Robert Downey Jr. and Chris Evans, it now has gained control of its biggest comics characters like the X-Men and Fantastic Four, thanks to the Disney-Fox merger. And Feige, for now, still has access to Spider-Man, which is currently licensed out to Sony. It's hard to believe, but Spidey is really the only A-list character Feige has had access to in all his years as Marvel Studios' boss. Iron Man, Captain America, and Thor are all banner heroes now, but if you travel back even to 2007, they were far from well-known heroes to the general public. The 1970s versions of the characters sure didn't help.
The old people around here are my friends.
Now that Marvel's Golden Boy Maestro has access to actual A-list characters, will he continue to find inventive ways to use heroes like Wolverine or Susan Storm? Well, so far at least, the signs point to Marvel continuing to mine strange properties. The upcoming Eternals movie, which will star Angelina Jolie, centers on a group of people created by the cosmic entities known as the Celestials. If you know what any of those words were before hearing about this movie, congratulations, you're a nerd. Marvel will also break new ground with its first Asian superhero, Shang-Chi, who is getting a solo feature directed by short-term 12's Destin Daniel Cretton. There will also be sequels to Black Panther, Doctor Strange, Guardians of the Galaxy, plus a Black Widow prequel. And don't forget that Disney Plus shows focusing on Loki and characters like Scarlet Witch and Vision are coming in the future too. Who could forget about those? So yeah, Marvel has a lot in the works with its existing heroes who, let's be honest, weren't household names before their films hit theaters. While Marvel sits atop a pile of cash the size of Mount Olympus built off of minor characters and DC's planned Justice League sequels lay in ruins, the question that begs asking is when, if ever, the era of the A-list superhero movie will come back. It's likely that Batman, the only superhero as cool as Spider-Man, yeah, I said it, will be returning to greatness thanks to writer-director Matt Reeves' upcoming 2021 film, while Patty Jenkins and Gal Gadot look to continue the success of Diana Prince at the box office with next year's Wonder Woman 1984. And now that he has control of the X-Men, it's likely Feige could craft a mutant movie that outgrows any that came before it and return the franchise to glory. Hallelujah. That's good news for big-name superheroes, but what about the granddad of them all? Superman. There are no current plans for a new Superman movie, but two things are for certain. It can't be a retread of what Christopher Reeves did, nor can it be dark and gritty like Zack Snyder's iterations. It needs to be something fresh that audiences have never seen before. God, how many times have I said that before? Why not an adaptation of Grant Morrison's acclaimed All-Star Superman, which the Scottish comic book writer imagined as the definitive Superman story, rather than something to set up a franchise? After all, Morrison wasn't looking to redo origin stories or unpack classic narratives with his comics, but rather a total rehaul of the character. These were his words, not mine. What's important to acknowledge here is that the notion of what an A-list character is has changed, and you can't unring that bell. Star-Lord and Black Panther are now on that list, as is Captain Marvel and even Aquaman, a dude who talks to fish, and was pretty much the punchline of every superhero joke for the last 4 decades. This is the new generation, one where A-listers like Superman and Batman have to prove themselves against the likes of Ant-Man or Drax, where heroes like Wolverine and Johnny Storm have to be reintroduced with new actors. Through it all, though, there is one constant. Hawkeye sucks.
Look, I'm sorry, guys. I wish I could have been more help.
So who do you guys think are the new A-list superheroes in town? Do you have a problem with what I said about Hawkeye? Let us know in the comments right down there.
Hawkeye? Who's Hawkeye?
Oh no, Hawkeye, Jeremy Renner.
No.
You know what, don't worry about it.